The complaint alleges that on January 10th of this year, 3 music industry professionals traveled to Dallas for a scheduled business meeting. Lontrell Williams Jr. arranged this meeting purportedly to discuss the terms of his recording contract with one of the victims.
Y'all need to hear this. No cap. We're talking about one of the most wild situations to hit hip-hop in years. And it ain't just a rap beef, gang. This is street politics, federal charges, a mama going off on Facebook Live, and an artist who allegedly got used up, locked up, and then left for dead by the very man who said he had him. We're talking about Pooh Shiesty, one of the hottest rappers to come out of Memphis in years, and Gucci Mane, the Atlanta legend who signed him, built a whole era of 1017 records off his back, and then, allegedly, sat in a Dallas studio and pointed the feds right at him. Let me set the scene real quick. April 2026, federal agents roll up on Pooh Shiesty at his home in Dallas, Texas. He just got out of federal prison 6 months prior. He's got FDO sitting at number 1. The comeback was real. The streets were rocking with him, and just like that, gone. Arrested, federal kidnapping and armed robbery charges. Him, his father, Big 30, and 6 other people, 9 defendants total. And the alleged victim? Radrick Davis. Gucci Mane himself. The internet exploded. But here's the thing. Before y'all make up your minds about who's right and who's wrong, you need to understand the full picture. Because this story didn't start in Dallas in 2026. It started years before that in a record deal that may have been designed to bleed a young artist dry. And Pooh Shiesty's mama, she's making sure the world knows it. Let's go back to the beginning. To understand how we got here, we need to rewind to 2020. Because that's when this whole thing was set in motion. Pooh Shiesty, born Lontrell Donnell Williams Jr., was a young Memphis rapper coming up fast, raw energy, street credibility, real lyrics. He wasn't manufactured, he was the real thing, and the industry noticed. When Gucci Mane came knocking, it felt like a blessing. Gucci had done it before. He'd been the co-sign machine for a decade. Waka Flocka, Young Jeezy affiliates, Migos. He had a nose for talent and a brand that meant something in the streets. So when WAP came to Memphis and offered Pooh a joint venture deal with 1017 Records and Atlantic Records, Pooh didn't hesitate. He said it himself, "I don't know who else I would go to. Ain't nobody was coming at me like WAP. It just made perfect sense." And for a minute, fam, it was perfect. Pooh Shiesty signed with 1017 in April 2020. Within months, Back in Blood was in the top 20 of the Billboard Hot 100, peaking at number 13. His debut mixtape, Shiesty Season, debuted number 4 on the Billboard 200. He was named an XXL freshman. Billboard named him Hip Hop Rookie of the Month, the very first one ever for that franchise. He was everywhere. The collab with Gucci on Still Remember felt like a torch being passed. WAP was saying out loud through the music that Pooh was the future. And then, the streets caught up. October 2020, Bay Harbor Islands, Florida. Pooh gets arrested in connection with a shooting. Charges including armed robbery, aggravated assault, battery, criminal theft. He's not out here living a fake rap life, fam.
The scene in Bay Harbor Islands with what investigators say led up to that shootout. Jessica.
It was a shooting in the middle of the day involving a well-known rapper, according to police. We reported this story back in October, but now we're seeing how it all went down. Bullets fly in broad daylight. 2 people shot and over $500,000 in exotic cars, all of it caught on camera. This surveillance video is from an October 9th shooting in Bay Harbor Islands, and it has a recording artist who goes by Pooh Shiesty in hot water. Shiesty, whose real name is Lontrell Williams, was arrested a few days later. He and a member of his entourage charged with aggravated battery with a deadly weapon.
The same streets that made his music real were pulling him back in. But that's just the first domino. Here's where it starts to snowball. 1. Miami. Strip club shooting. Pooh gets arrested again. This time he's held without bond. Then he gets indicted on the 2020 Florida charges.
Rapper Pooh Shiesty is facing prison time after pleading guilty to a gun charge in Miami federal court. The case against Lontrell Williams Jr. stems from 3 shootings during the past 2 years, 2 of them happening right here in South Florida. In October of 2020, prosecutors say that Williams and another man shot 2 men after arranging to buy marijuana and high-end sneakers from them. Then in May of last year, Williams was accused of shooting a security guard at in the leg at a Miami strip club. Now, prosecutors say he could get up to 20 years in prison, but attorneys from both sides are reportedly seeking a shorter sentence to roughly 8 years in prison instead.
By July 2021, a federal judge orders him held without bond entirely. He pleads guilty to federal conspiracy charges, specifically conspiring to possess firearms in furtherance of crimes of violence and drug trafficking. April 2022, sentenced to 5 years and 3 months in federal prison. Just like that, one of the hottest artists in the country was gone. Memphis's newest star, 1017's biggest draw since Gucci himself, locked up. Now here's where you gotta pay attention, because what Gucci Mane did next is what lit the fuse on everything that followed. Here's where it gets crazy. 9 days after Pooh Shiesty started serving his sentence, Gucci dropped Shiesty Season, Certified, a 32-track project of Pooh's music, released while the man is sitting in a federal prison cell. Couldn't touch a dime of it, couldn't do press, couldn't perform, couldn't nothing. But the album was out there making money, streaming, generating revenue, and Pooh Shiesty wasn't seeing any of it. Now let me break it down for you, because this is the part that changes the whole conversation. Pooh's mother, Gladys Baines, allegedly claimed, and this spread through the streets like wildfire, picked up by Charleston White and others, that Gucci Mane made approximately $24 million off Pooh Shiesty while he was locked up. $24 million. And Pooh allegedly didn't see a single cent of it while he was in prison. Not a payment, not support for his family, nothing. Now I want y'all to sit with that for a second. This is a man who built Gucci's new era. Back in Blood alone was a cultural moment. His debut mixtape debuted top 5 on the Billboard 200 in his first year. He put 1017 back on the map at a time when the label needed it most. And when the feds took him away, the label kept cashing in while his mama allegedly couldn't get a response. But here's what makes it worse. Remember when I said Gucci dropped almost his entire 1017 roster? Let me give you the context on that. In late 2022, Gucci Mane posted a video announcing he was releasing nearly every artist from 1017 Records. He looked at his profit and loss statement, his words, and said it didn't make business sense to keep most of them. One by one, artists got cut loose. The whole new era of 1017 gone. Big Scar had just passed away. Enchanting had just passed away. The roster that Gucci had built with so much fanfare was being dismantled. But not Pooh Shiesty, and not Fujiano, who was also in prison at the time. Think about what that means, gang. Gucci dropped every artist who was free, alive, and capable of making new music. But the two men sitting in federal cages, he held on to them. He kept them locked into their contracts while they couldn't move, couldn't negotiate, couldn't do anything. You want to talk about strategy? That's calculated. He kept the ones who couldn't fight back. Gucci even acknowledged it was a business decision. He literally said he looked at his profits and losses, and the math told him, keep the imprisoned artists, keep the catalog, keep the money flowing. That's not loyalty, that's leverage. Now, some people will say Gucci was protecting Pooh's deal, that by keeping him signed, he was making sure Pooh had somewhere to land when he got out. And look, fam, I'll give that argument its due. On the surface, you could spin it that way. But here's the real tea. If that was the move out of loyalty, then where was the support? Where were the commissary deposits? Where was the legal fund? Where was Gucci publicly backing his artists through the legal battle? Because that's what loyalty actually looks like in this business. You don't get to claim you're holding it down for someone when you're holding on to their contract but not holding their family down. That's the disconnect, and that disconnect grew into a canyon over 3 years. Pooh Shiesty sat in federal prison from 2022 to October 2025. 3 years. His mother, Gladys Baines, is allegedly out here trying to figure out how to keep things together while Gucci Mane is sitting on a catalog that's built on her son's voice. And when she needed help, when Pooh's family was struggling, the silence was deafening. But that's just the beginning. What happened when Pooh got out? That's when the real drama started. October 6, 2025. Lontrell Williams Jr. walks out of federal prison. He had served 3 years, released early for good behavior, and fam, the streets welcomed him back.
And new at 6, Memphis rapper Pooh Shiesty is out of federal prison. Court records show the Memphis native, whose real name is Lontrell Williams Jr., was released from a Pennsylvania facility after serving time for a gun charge in Florida. Williams was sentenced in 2022 to just over 5 years for conspiring to possess firearms tied to drug trafficking and violent crimes. His attorney confirmed the release, saying he's eager to return to the studio and make new music.
His first single back, FDO, dropped in December 2025 and immediately rocketed to #1 on Billboard's Hot R&B/hip-hop songs and Hot Rap Songs charts. #1, like he never left. The comeback was not just real, it was a statement. And before all of this went sideways, he even sat down with Billboard and talked about his relationship with Gucci. He said Gucci went crazy for FDO. He said WAP couldn't believe it. On the surface, everything seemed fine, but the streets knew better. Behind the scenes, Pooh allegedly had a problem. He was locked into that 2017 deal, a contract that he'd signed at 24 years old before he knew what he was worth, before he understood what streaming revenue looked like at scale, before he'd sat in prison and had 3 years to think about every dollar somebody else was making off his name. He came home to the same contract, the same terms, but a very different understanding of what those terms meant. He allegedly tried to address it, tried to get out, tried to renegotiate or get a release, and that's where it broke down. That's where 3 years of silence, 3 years of allegedly unpaid money, 3 years of watching Gucci hold on to his contract while he sat in a cell. That's where all of that boiled over. January 10th, 2026, Dallas, Texas, a recording studio. According to federal prosecutors, Pooh Shiesty arranged what appeared to be a meeting to discuss the status of his recording contract. Gucci Mane was there. 2 other individuals were there. What happened next shocked everyone. Per the Department of Justice, Pooh arrived at that studio not to talk, but to take. He allegedly came with 8 other people, including his father, Lontrell Williams Sr., and Memphis rapper Big 30. Federal prosecutors say the group executed what they called a coordinated armed takeover. Pooh allegedly pulled out a black AK-style pistol, pointed it at Gucci Mane, and forced him to sign a release from the recording contract at gunpoint. Big 30 allegedly barricaded the studio door with his body so nobody could leave. The other men in the group allegedly robbed the other victims of Rolex watches, jewelry, cash, and other valuables. One victim was reportedly choked to near unconsciousness. The whole thing was allegedly captured on surveillance cameras in the building. Prosecutors say they also had rental car receipts, license plate reader data, and, this is the part that sealed it, data from the ankle monitor Pooh was wearing from his previous conviction. He was on home confinement, fam. The ankle monitor was tracking his every move on the night of January 10th. At the end of the incident, Gucci allegedly signed the release, under duress, at gunpoint. The paperwork was taken, the robbery was complete, and then the entire group allegedly drove to the apartment complex in Frisco where Pooh and his father lived before splitting up. Some took a Greyhound bus back to Memphis, others drove back in a pickup truck.
The charging document outlines some of the evidence, just some, establishing the defendant's roles in the federal offense. This is as follows. Electronic monitoring data placing Williams Jr. at the offense location, which would put him in violation of his home detention conditions. Cell phone records and license plate reader data corroborating the coordinated travel of multiple defendants from Memphis, Tennessee to Dallas. Rental car records confirming Williams Sr. rented a vehicle that was used by the group. Surveillance footage from the offense location, a nearby office supply store, and a hotel where several of the defendants stayed following the offense. Fingerprint evidence as well that was recovered from the crime scene, matching at least 2 of the defendants.
8 of the 9 suspects were arrested within days, across Dallas, Memphis, and Nashville. Pooh's father was picked up. Big 30 was picked up. Pooh Shiesty himself was arrested at his Dallas home on April 2nd, 2026. The 9th suspect was still at large at the time of the arrests. The charges? Federal kidnapping and armed robbery.
This week, 9 individuals, including well-known musical artists, kidnapped and robbed at gunpoint numerous victims at a music studio in Dallas, Texas. 8 of the 9 were arrested yesterday in Dallas, Memphis, and Nashville. These individuals who are charged and arrested include Lontrell Williams Jr., also known as Pooh Shiesty, Lontrell Williams Sr., Rodney Wright Jr., also known as Big 30, Kadarius Waters, Demarion Gibson, DeMarcus Glover, Corday Johnson, Darian McDaniel, and Terrence Rogers has not been arrested yet, but will be soon.
And because Pooh was on home confinement at the time, actively serving conditions from his previous federal conviction, Prosecutors flagged that as an aggravating factor. The U.S. attorney said a conviction in this case could bring life in prison. Let that land. Life in prison. But here's what really happened next. And this is what makes the mama's reaction make complete sense. Now here's where people started connecting the dots. The snitching allegations came fast, because for Pooh to be charged as specifically as he was, for the feds to have witness identifications, surveillance, and corroborating testimony all lined up, somebody talked. And the internet immediately looked in one direction. DJ Academics laid it out plainly on his live stream. He said all the alleged victims cooperated with investigators and identified who was present during the offense. Specifically, he noted that Gucci and a cameraman had identified Big 30 by his Instagram account. Academics said straight up that Gucci was doing the identification, pointing the finger at the people who came through that door. Now, Academics also said he'd do the same thing if someone put a gun to his head, and look, that's a fair point. Nobody's legally obligated to stay silent after they get kidnapped and robbed at gunpoint. That's not the debate. But here's where the optics get complicated, fam. This is the streets we're talking about. This is hip-hop. And in that world, the moment you cooperate with federal investigators to identify and build a case against your own artists who signed with you, who made you money, who trusted you, that's a different kind of conversation. Pooh Shiesty's lawyer, John Helms, came out immediately after the arrest and said the government was oversimplifying things. He said, quote, "The case involves circumstances and motivations that are very often not what they seem." A second attorney, Bradford Cohen, who joined the case shortly after, noted that after reviewing the bond hearing testimony, there appeared to be, in his words, a significant gap in the statements made by the government and the actual evidence. He said they were going to hold the government to its burden. That's lawyer talk for, we're about to poke holes in this, and that context matters. Because if the evidence isn't as airtight as prosecutors want people to believe, then the question of who said what to whom becomes even more significant. Meanwhile, the streets had already made up their mind. In Atlanta, a clip went viral of an inmate inside a facility throwing Gucci Mane's book, Episodes, The Diary of a Recovering Madman, over a railing, just tossed it. The symbolism was loud. The sentiment in hip-hop circles was shifting against Gucci in real time. Fans were openly calling him a snitch, not just for this case, but bringing up his entire history. The irony wasn't lost on people that the same man who built a whole memoir around his own legal battles and survival was now allegedly the person who helped walk 9 men into federal charges. And this is where Pooh Shiesty's mom, Gladys Baines, enters the picture fully. Gladys Baines didn't stay quiet. Not even close. In the days following her son's arrest, she took to Facebook and started posting. She wasn't doing press conferences. She wasn't doing formal interviews. She was on Facebook being real, in real time. She posted things like, "I've been blocked, you hating MFs, amen," followed by messages about her ears ringing and blessings coming. She was signaling hard that she knew exactly what was going on and she wasn't shaken. Then she went live on Facebook, just over a minute long. She's riding in a car, baby hairs laid, gold hoops, white graphic tee, looking unbothered. Pooh's Shiesty Summer is playing in the background. One of the women she's riding with flips the camera off. She doesn't directly address the charges. She doesn't say Gucci's name in the video. But everything about that live said exactly what she meant. The music, the energy, the middle finger. That wasn't a grieving mother in distress. That was a woman who believed her son was right, who understood why he did what he allegedly did, and who was not about to sit down and act like Gucci Mane was the victim in this larger story. Because according to the narrative that came out through Charleston White's commentary, which he attributed to things Gladys had allegedly been saying, this is the bigger picture. Gucci made approximately $24 million off Pooh Shiesty while he was in prison. He kept Pooh locked into his contract while he sat in a cell. He released that 32-track certified album 9 days after Pooh started his sentence. He held on to the catalog. He didn't support the family. And when Pooh came home and tried to address what was owed, Gucci allegedly refused to release him from the deal and then cooperated with the feds when Pooh took matters into his own hands. That's the mama's angle. That's what Gladys Baines is repping when she rides around playing Shiesty Summer and lets her girl throw the middle finger at the camera. She's saying, "My son didn't come out of nowhere with this. My son was responding to years of exploitation and silence." Now Rick Ross, who has no dog in this fight, actually came out and addressed the situation with some real perspective. He said he didn't like it for either side. He said Gucci didn't deserve what allegedly happened to him, but he also used it as a masterclass moment, saying there were legitimate legal ways to contest a record contract. You could have gone to court. You could have lawyered up and fought the deal on its merits. And that's true. That's the right answer legally. But here's the thing about the right answer that a lot of people are missing. The right answer requires money. The right answer requires time. The right answer requires a team of attorneys who specialize in music law who are willing to go up against a label that has Atlantic Records distribution money behind it. Pooh Shiesty came home from prison in October 2025. His family allegedly wasn't being supported while he was in. He had been gone 3 years, and he was still locked into a contract that was signed when he was a 24-year-old kid who just wanted to rap. You tell me how realistic it is to say, just hire music lawyers and litigate your way out of it when the system was stacked against him from the jump. That's not to say what allegedly happened in that Dallas studio was the right call. It clearly wasn't, and now Pooh is looking at potential life in prison because of it. That consequence is real and it's devastating. But understanding the why doesn't mean co-signing the how. And understanding what Gladys Baines is saying doesn't mean thinking everything went down correctly. It means recognizing that this situation was built brick by brick long before that studio door got barricaded. Let's zoom out, fam, because this ain't just about Pooh Shiesty and Gucci Mane. This situation is a symptom of something way bigger in this industry. How many young artists, especially young black artists from the streets, have signed deals at 21, 22, 23 years old that they didn't fully understand? How many of them gave their sound, their name, their catalog, and their culture to labels and executives who knew exactly what those contracts meant and signed them anyway? How many of those same artists ended up in situations where the label was eating off their creativity while they were struggling, locked up, or dead? Big Scar died in 2022, also a 1017 artist. And Channing passed away unexpectedly that same year. The new era of 1017 was supposed to be a dynasty. Instead, it became a tragedy. And the one artist who survived it all, who beat the federal system, came home and immediately went to #1, found himself back in handcuffs 6 months later because of a contract dispute. That's the story of hip-hop in 2026. That's the story that Gladys Baines is telling when she gets on Facebook Live with her son's music playing. She's not just a mother defending her child out of blind love. She's a woman who watched the industry take from her family for years. And when her son tried to take back what he believed was his, she watched the same industry call the police. Now here's the controversial part, and I'm keeping it 100 with y'all. Gucci Mane has every legal right to cooperate with law enforcement when he's the alleged victim of an armed robbery and kidnapping. Period. Full stop. Nobody should have a gun put to their head regardless of any prior business disputes. That's not how you settle things. Rick Ross was right about that. But real recognize real. The court of public opinion is not the same as a federal courtroom. And in the court of public opinion, when you've spent years as the man who kept an artist's contract while they sat in prison, when you allegedly didn't support the family during those years, when you released music off their name while they couldn't do anything about it, and then you identify them to federal investigators after they came to you with a grievance. The streets are going to have a reaction to that. And that reaction ain't going to be pretty. Is Gucci a snitch? That depends on whose definition you're using. Legally? No. He's a crime victim who cooperated with authorities. In the streets? A lot of people are saying yes, and that's a line he may never be able to uncross in hip-hop culture. The bigger question is this: what happens to the 9 people charged in this case? Pooh Shiesty's attorney is already pointing out gaps between what the government is claiming and what the evidence actually shows. His father is on house arrest with a $250,000 bond. Big 30 is facing these same federal charges with his life on the line. And Pooh, a man who had just gone #1 6 months ago, is sitting in federal custody in Dallas, looking at the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison. Over a record contract, over money that he allegedly earned and never saw, over 3 years of silence from a man he once called his mentor. Y'all tell me, is that justice, or is that just how the game works when you don't have power? And maybe that's the real lesson here. Not that Pooh Shiesty was right to do what he allegedly did, but that the music industry has created a system where young artists feel so trapped, so exploited, and so without options that this is where it ends up. In federal court, with mothers going live on Facebook, with fathers on house arrest, with life sentences on the table. This is bigger than Pooh, this is bigger than Gucci, this is the industry eating its own. And Gladys Baines, she's not going anywhere. She's riding for her son. And whether you agree with her or not, you gotta respect that a mother who watched her child get used up by the machine isn't going to sit down and act grateful when that same machine calls the cops. The streets are watching, the courtrooms are busy, and this story is far from over. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Gucci was wrong for cooperating, or did Pooh leave him no choice? Let me know what y'all think. And if you're new to the channel and you came for the real ones, hit that subscribe button because we keep it 100 around here every single time. We out.